Our next presenter is Nicola Hutton, Human Resources Head, ANZ Philippines. Nicola oversees HR for one of the country's fastest growing shared services organizations. Ladies and gentlemen, Nicola Hutton.
I've got what we call in Australia the graveyard shift after lunch, and I was just debating with my trusty team, and you can't do these things without a team. I think one of them's very nervous I'm about to make him help me, and I'm not. It's okay. But there was going to be a yoga session, which is no more. But the very cool thing about 2016 is that my team and I have started doing yoga at lunchtimes. Not every day for all of us, but it certainly makes a big difference in just stepping out and realising that you can make time for it. So rather than attempt to battle through the graveyard shift without getting you to stand up, and there is no yoga, so instead I'm going to impromptu suggest that everybody stands up, please. A bit of energy in the room after you might be still eating, so apologies if you still are. An impromptu just stretch in whatever way that you feel comfortable. Put your arms up. Irvin, I'm looking to you for inspiration at least. Perhaps roll your head around. You've all been sitting down for a long time. Big yawns in the room. Some stretching, and hopefully all of you actually got some fresh air before you came in today. And I know part of what I'll be talking about is that I certainly make sure, and it is, people do have a bit of a laugh that living in the middle of Makati, I don't probably get entirely fresh air. But regardless, it's high quality fumes that I'm breathing in from all those jeepneys that certainly don't hesitate to be letting off plenty of air. So if you're all feeling like, unless I kind of make you jump up and down, that would be another way, but otherwise I'll allow you to sit down and say thank you very much. Apologies, it wasn't really yoga, it was my best effort. Irvin is very relieved that he's safely sitting down again without me putting him on the spot. So magandang araw sa inyong lahat at mabuhay. Before I begin, I want to share with you some of my own personal background, as I think that provides helpful context into the rest of my discussion today. I also want to give you a health warning. My way is not the only way, and my experience is obviously only one set of experiences. I think there's some people that look at me and I make them exhausted. I do tend to have to remind myself not to run around when I'm getting particularly excited or wanting to deliver things. But remembering there's always many sides of every person, and so the person that is in the office and at times on a mission is not the person that's at home and perhaps with the children, trying to get out of actually having to play yet another round of some game that I'm entirely sick of, or reading a book for the 10th time in a row, which the 2-year-old might have found suddenly his new favouriteest book. And that tends to be the case, that a bit of repetition seems to go a long way in the mind of a 2-year-old. There are reams and reams of materials on women in leadership, some fantastic speeches, discussion forums and research from senior business leaders, politicians and other well-known females. And the great news is that many males are now also joining us in discussing this issue. Mon was fantastic to see on the stage today. Not sure if he's still here. But the more that men can join, I guess, the debate, the more we're going to be able to make a genuine difference. The need for males to be advocates for women and support the change that is needed is becoming increasingly recognised. Gender equality is not only the right thing to do, but it makes good economic sense, with the need for organisations to represent the communities they serve in order to drive the best possible business outcomes, and have been proven to deliver higher economic returns. Thankfully, the need to achieve gender equality in the workplace is no longer a debated fact, with the focus shifting to how to fix this gap. Why are women not securing the top roles in organisations at the same rate as men? Why are there generally less women in leadership than men? But first, to my personal background. I'm not yet 40 years old, but I will be in less than a fortnight. I am the mother to three fantastic children, aged 7, 5 and 3. My eldest would like to be a spy. My daughter would like to be a lolly maker. And my youngest is going to be Superman. They're not going to be scientists at this point. I also have 2 Filipino pusses, and I'm super proud to be the wife of an amazing man. This is a critical piece of advice that I'd like to share. It's easier said than done, and hopefully In 20 years' time, I'll be standing here telling a similar story about this part of my life. But marry well. The quickest way to achieve your goals is to have the support of your partner. It's the biggest decision of your life, so make it a good one. I'm Australian and have lived in Manila for the last year and a half. I've also lived and worked in London and Melbourne, the city of my birth and where I grew up. I have a Bachelor of Business degree and an MBA. I'm currently proud to be the head of HR for ANZ in the Philippines, a business that has close to 2,500 employees based here in Manila and more than 50,000 employees globally. The business here serves ANZ's operations and customers throughout the world. I can't resist but put in a plug that I think that ANZ as a global organisation is genuinely committed to advancing women in leadership and all forms of diversity and inclusion. I've been with ANZ close to 10 years and I could not personally stay with an organisation that didn't have the values, beliefs and truly strong ethics that ANZ demonstrates. Like any organisation, we certainly have times, and you may have seen in media recently, ANZ had some unfortunate attention, but I would say that, yes, whilst you might have unfortunate attention at times, that's genuinely only a couple of individuals that might be demonstrating those behaviours. And remembering that any organisation is made up of many, many, and ANZ in particular I would be able to vouch for, employees that do the right thing and have the right ethics and demonstrate that every day. So for me, I'm proud to be with ANZ, and I would say anybody that looks into our organisation would find it a fantastic place to work. On top of that, I'm also the co-chair and proud to have started the Women in Business Committee as a part of ANZ Philippines, along with the wonderful Jo Cruz, who's here from ANZ today. Together, along with a group of other amazing females, along with a couple of males, we're trying to, using the ANZ banner, really advance the opportunities for women in the Philippines, and particularly in leadership roles. My role is like other management roles, never-ending, and my team and I have to deal with ANZ's local-level priorities, regional-level priorities, and head office priorities. Being in HR, we never know quite what we're going to find when we get out of bed in the morning or at any point in our day. Every so often there's a rock that you lift up that you suddenly have to deal with, whatever you find with it underneath. We're also looked at to, I guess, keep the calm and make sure that we're at all times beyond reproach and holding the ethics of the organisation. I do take my role super seriously, but also know that you can't take yourself too seriously. We all make mistakes and we're only human. So how we balance ourselves and how you actually position yourself in an organisation as a female that has a family, I think is a really tricky juggling act. But I think it's remembering that no one's perfect is really critical. So you may be questioning the relevance of my background to the women in leadership debate. While the underrepresentation of female leaders is prevalent across business, education and government institutions, to name a few, my background is not unique. Many leaders and aspiring leaders are working through the competing priorities of work and life. And as a mother, I, like so many other working mothers, want to ensure I get to spend as much time with my children as possible. School plays, today, the sports day that I've missed being here, children's award presentations are all priorities. As a senior leader in demanding business role, I have work priorities, a new rewards program, talent management, learning initiatives. Today, ANZ's made some significant organisational announcements about changes to our structure. You're juggling that, but also you have to deal with your own priorities to your own satisfaction. And ultimately, those of our bosses that determines what coping methods we use. Performing in business needs to be holistic, and until this pathway is made smooth, there remain additional impediments to getting mothers to return to work. More on this a little later. Moving on to women in leadership. It is a topic that has been extensively debated, researched and discussed. Today there's been many views that you've heard. This isn't a new conversation. It's been going on since the early 1900s. A multitude of different approaches have been used to prod and poke the topic from a number of different angles, and here I'm adding to the debate. But I don't want it to be a debate. I want people to accept that we need more women in leadership positions. The debate is how we will make it happen. What can I do as a leader, and what can you do as leaders and as people in the community to inspire, prod, poke and encourage women around you into leadership positions? There are some facts that I'd like to share in highlighting the extent of the issue. Fact number one, in many countries throughout the world, the US, Australia and the UK included, there are more females than males graduating from high school. Second fact is, according to The Economist, this is the case in 32 of 34 OECD countries. Germany and Switzerland, for those that are interested, they do manage to buck the trend. The proportion of females graduating has been steadily shifting over a number of decades, and there has been a shift over the last 15 years, up from 54% female in 2000 to 58% in 2009 in OECD countries. This is a good thing. So if females are effectively overrepresented at university, why isn't this the case at all levels of organisations and government? What are the barriers? Of new graduates in the UK, a male earns around 20% more on an hourly basis than a female. Why is that? It is partially explained by the fields of study that females take when moving into tertiary education. In science and technology fields, men still dominate women in representation terms. In education and health science, the trend is completely the opposite. For the top 5 undergraduate qualifications, males dominate graduate classes. In engineering, for example, the highest paying graduate discipline, males account for 93% of graduates. But again, research highlights that for the same job, females are not as well paid as their male counterparts. Sheryl Sandberg's book, Lean In, highlights the issue in the US. In the US, in 2010, women earned 77 cents for every dollar that men made. Now, you could stand here and say that's just not fair, but it's more, well, if that's the case, what are we going to do about it? For jobs where rates of pay are public knowledge, we have seen pressure push for pay alignment. A great example of this is Grand Slam tennis. Currently we have the Australian Open taking place, which offers equal prize money. Wimbledon being the last one to equalise in 2007. We're now seeing a push in women's soccer in an attempt to bridge the Grand Canyon-like divide between the different rates of pay for both sexes. I don't know about you, but when I saw that on the news only last week, I was absolutely horrified to see how large the divide still is. Let alone that they are absolutely, and I know Mitzi's speaking later from the media, that, you know, that the females were getting just as much media coverage. So no longer is that the argument that the males are making more money for the industry than females are. So why should we care about pay rates and graduation rates and a range of other factors? Specifically, we need to make sure that at all stages and levels we encourage women to participate. Firstly, they need to finish school. Then they need to go to college. Then they need to break in some of the historically male-dominated degrees like engineering, computer science and maths. And then into the workforce where still more needs to be done. The topic of children needs to be brought up too. For too often is an excuse for employers not to provide opportunities for expecting mothers or mothers returning to work without a new opportunity, a promotion or even just a pay increase. I too have been subjected to what happens when you go away, have babies, and in Australia you spend quite some time off work. The miraculous removal of you from a talent program isn't the greatest of feelings, and people think that there's nothing to discuss. I'd like to think that now, 7 years on, things have changed significantly already within the Australian context from when I experienced that, but it's absolutely still happening and we need to talk about it. With females making up more and more of the professional workforce, organisations need to continue to look at ways to encourage women to be empowered to make their own choices. In a world of talent constraints, organisations can't afford to lose talented females because there aren't enough childcare options, but there isn't support of family work-life balance. This is not only an impact on the individual, but often it also permeates throughout the organisation to other aspiring females who may make different choices about where they want to work, and importantly, how high they want to strive based on what is happening to their colleagues. Remember, your talented employees are likely to be mentoring others. More needs to be done by governments, too, in order to support women in the workforce and also returning to work. Having mothers return to work is in the government's economic interest. Tax incentives for childcare, incentives for employers, family allowances are all options. We've recently seen the Philippine Senate passing a bill late last year extending maternity leave provisions. We're waiting for this to go through Congress, but it's a fantastic step forward. India is debating doubling paid maternity provisions up to 26 weeks. so progress is being made. Unfortunately, governments around the world are struggling to balance the books. Extending existing family-friendly policies or introducing new ones is more of a challenge. Organisations are increasingly realising that flexible working in its many forms is critical for attracting and retaining the best employees and also benefits the ability to service customers in a flexible way that meets their needs. Flexible working is something that ANZ is in the process of introducing globally, as we are here in the Philippines, to better enable our employees to have it all and be able to juggle their family and work life without having to make the hard decision of choosing one or the other. I personally attribute having worked flexibly to how and why I've continued to progress and enjoy my career whilst having a young family. This has resulted in my having a far stronger loyalty to ANZ as an employer, and I think I would have otherwise had. Who knows, I may have at one point when things got too hard and I was making big decisions when children were sick, and frankly, those long nights of not having sleep, fronting up to work the next day, particularly in dual career couples, I may well have chosen to step off at that point. But because I had flexible working offered to me by ANZ, I was able to juggle it all and keep on going. Even to the point of moving overseas with such a young family, which, mind you, even in the Australian context of flexible working, people thought I was slightly crazy, and had Jimmy, my husband, really agreed to this. On the topic of children, I asked my children for some feedback, and I understand I also missed that somebody else shared a personal story this morning when I wasn't able to be here of what their child had given them as feedback. I think my congruent message from my child was, I was sharing with my team earlier, that my son, last year I'd just moved countries and was coming to terms with how to be effective and how to actually position myself, let alone how deeply I wanted to be able to fit into Filipino society and the Filipino workplace. It wasn't easy. It was a whole lot harder than I could ever have expected. And so my youngest son, who was struggling at school, he wrote me a little message. He said, "Thank you for pulling yourself together and going to work, Mummy. Now it's my turn. I'll try harder to learn to spell." My daughter said to me when I said, "Mummy, what does it feel like to have a mummy who goes to work?" This was on the weekend. It was the wrong question, because Coco, who's 5 and super cute, said, "It feels sad. I miss my mummy." I told my husband, who said, "Oh, what did you ask her that for? Now you're going to cry again." I said, No, I'm not. It's a year later. I'm okay. I asked her the wrong question, so I'm going to ask it differently to Felix. So Felix is 7. I said, "Felix, what's the good thing about Mummy going to work?" That it feels fun and exciting. We get to go on planes and we get to have a daddy who stays home, not just yayas. And then Louis, the 3-year-old, who's been trained not to cry when I go to work because it makes me cry. He said, "No crying when I go to school and Mummy goes to work." And as you can see, it still makes me emotional because I just love them to bits. But it's tough. It's really tough. You miss them, they miss you, but I'm absolutely convinced that we're doing the right thing and we're setting the right examples. So moving from my children that always send me to pieces, talk about unconscious bias. Once in the workforce, many aspiring women leaders have other issues to deal with. Once, I'm sure many of you have heard about before, that of unconscious bias, and I think it was mentioned this morning. Unconscious bias refers to bias that we're unaware of and which happens outside of our control. Consider the following 3 graphics for a few seconds. Can we put the slides up, please? So a man and his son were in a car accident. Go to the next one. The man died on the way to the hospital, but the boy was rushed into surgery. The surgeon said, "I can't operate, for that's my son." Confusing. How can this be? The father is dead. What is the possible logical explanation? In fact, the surgeon is the boy's mother. I know that many of you here, while you might not admit it, initially couldn't make sense of the scenario. That is your unconscious bias at work. It doesn't mean that you would be a bad manager, but what it does mean is that in certain circumstances you make decisions, especially quick decisions, based on your own rationality, background, upbringing, and so on. Maybe hundreds of years from now, someone will show this picture and it will be the mother in the car and a male surgeon. So what can be done about unconscious bias and why do we care? Gender is a shortcut to help us guess whether someone is strong or weak, aggressive or caring, and the stereotypes are ones you are familiar with, such as, we all know that on average women are more caring than men. You also hear comments made about women that have made it as leaders. She is a tough operator. But you rarely hear the same comment about a man that has made it into a similar position. Research on bias shows that males tend to unconsciously prefer to hire males. Given that males have traditionally occupied positions of leadership, it followed that they tended to hire other males. It turns out both the organisation and individual can take steps here. As individuals, attempting to recognise where you might have a bias is half the battle. It transforms your bias from unconscious to conscious. You can better understand your biases and attempt to, where appropriate, override them. It's not unique to ANZ, but we are rolling unconscious bias training out throughout all our employees, certainly in the Philippines, and we've done so globally. I would encourage others, it's not a secret for ANZ, I would encourage organisations across the Philippines to look into this because it genuinely is a great way to be able to help shift people's mindsets. The more mindsets that can be shifted, the more the society is going to change, and we all benefit from that. At an organisational level, you can implement policies to help override biases. Quotas, I know it's debatable, but I'm a firm advocate myself because the fact is we do have a problem and we do have to do something significant to be able to shift the dial. Positive discrimination, bias training for managers. Make them aware of their biases, such as unconscious bias training. So while many organisations are implementing policies to recruit, develop, train and promote females into leadership ranks, achieving a more balanced outcome where females are fairly represented will take time. So until then, as individuals, you can all take steps to promote yourself within an organisation. Get noticed and moved into leadership positions. Lean in. But remember, it's not merely women who aspire to be leaders that will benefit from the implementation of proactive, female-friendly policies and initiatives. All women will benefit. So take an interest and ensure the issues are well known and discussed. There's a further benefit to all the males. This is not just about women. For males to work in gender mixed teams means that you're going to come up with a whole lot more creative solutions. You're actually going to be representing the communities that you live in. So it benefits both males and females to be working together. When they go to school together in mixed groups, why on earth would you not continue to do that when you move into the workplace? So now for some personal tips. As I said earlier, I said I'd give you some tips. What I've done personally to help me progress. There are other things that I might not have done and no secret formula. And there's loads of things that I would never do again. And I guess that's part of it. Being able to fail, fully fall over and pick yourself up again. As my son said, thank you for pulling yourself together. It's how you pull yourself together that's the main thing, not that you ever fell apart. So half the battle is having the discipline to actually focus on a career and plan what you will do in the short, medium and long term. So as 9 is my favourite number, it's my birthday, I have 9 of the top tips that great women and experience of my life have shared and I've tested and developed over time. And I hope I will continue to develop the rest of my life. So the number 1, don't let anyone tell you you can't have it all. I was once told this when I had a boss, female, we can be the worst, upset that I had returned to work after having 12 months off to have my second child and 6 months later was pregnant with our third child. She was referring to us being a dual career couple and juggling the babies in both our careers. You can and will have it all, but make it out that what you want and value, what you want and value, not what you think others want of you. Know your family will love you for being you, not for what you do. And so outsource as much as you can. especially the things that don't really matter. I'm kind of a control freak, so this one's a really tough one for me to keep learning. I'm really talking about personal things, but could equally apply to work too. So for me, it's about my 5-year-old daughter having pretty bows in her hair. It really matters to me. But my yaya does an amazing job at doing Coco's hair and putting pretty bows in her hair. I don't actually have to be the one that does it and have that fight, because it is a fight every morning. Lucky me having yayas. Coming from Australia, where helpers are not common, and so no one else would have done my daughter's hair with those pretty bows, it does mean in Australia you spend money having house cleaners, for instance. In fact, a significant amount of our salaries in Australia would go towards having childcare. At times I was paying almost 100% of my salary just to be able to keep going to work. Also to have someone who was picking up our shirts to iron, online supermarket shopping and home delivery. You're actually super lucky in the Philippines to have the ability to have people who become a part of your family and do all of that seamlessly without having to bring in 10 other forms of being able to get things done. My second tip is called the Yellow Brick Road. As Dorothy did in The Wizard of Oz, take the path less travelled and the time to get there, but make sure you have friends to join you on the journey. Remember Dorothy had Toto, her dog, and she had the Tin Man, she had the Straw Man, and I'm forgetting somebody. Who am I forgetting? Lion. The lion. So, without that, which is effectively your team, I would say bring them on the journey. But then make sure you take that yellow road. Don't take the normal, boring one that everybody else is going on. Life is a journey. You don't have to be the CEO tomorrow. You should work out where you want to go. Remember, not everyone even wants to be the CEO. And then set realistic goals to help you get there. Have courage and believe in yourself and make magic happen. Nothing was ever achieved without taking risks. This is where I think grit comes in. When it feels like things are getting too hard, lean in and show grit, reassuring yourself you are making the progress even though you're making the greatest of mistakes. This is when you can be sure you're progressing along your yellow brick road. The third one is work out what makes you get out of bed in the morning. And you've heard that from other speakers. What is it that you are doing and see if you can do more of it in the next role. Employees are more effective, efficient and happy performing tasks that they enjoy. And somebody else has already quoted Nelson Mandela today. So now Nelson Mandela once said, one of the most difficult things is not to change society but to change yourself. Being able to build in my advocacy for diversity and inclusion into my role and give back to the communities in which I'm living and working is critical to me. I love working with and helping people learn and progress. Being co-chair of the ANZ Women in Business Committee and sharing this with other committee members is an honour I take very seriously and am determined to ensure I honour in return for the amazing life and experiences and joy the Filipino people have given myself and my family living here. Fourth one, leaders and mentors matter. Be selective who you work for and who your colleagues are. Choose the company you work for and carefully, as it does matter. And without a doubt, the mindset and DNA of an organisation plays a key role in your ability to stretch yourself. Not waste half of every day attempting to gain credibility at the table and convincing people to believe you and give you a chance. There are always a few roadblocks and bad apples blocking your way, regardless of the strength of the organisation, but they can be sidestepped versus an organisation full of them, which is more of a roadblock and mountain to climb. Find a mentor who you can relate to inside or outside of your business. I found I need to pick them for myself, as only you and that person can judge the chemistry and your level of authentic respect. The ones that have been picked for me on the different talent programs I've been on in the past, in all honesty, just haven't worked for me. It's the other ones, the less likely, that people actually would probably have never thought I would connect with, are the ones where I have got the greatest learnings and continue to. Make sure you don't have 10. That's exhausting for everybody and it will never be authentic. Number 5, ask for help. Don't be too proud to ask people, whether it be your team, your boss or your peers, for help. Usually it is forthcoming, but make sure you always respond to others' calls for help too. Here, I must acknowledge the wonderful team from ANZ who are here today. Martin, Ice, Irvin, sitting in the front row supporting me, and our LT ladies, Jo, Maria and X. I think someone commented earlier, wow, there's a lot of ANZers here. And I was really proud. That's because we're colleagues and we support each other. It's part of our organisational DNA. Number 6, be yourself. Trying to be something that you aren't is difficult, challenging and likely to lead to disappointment. Be congruent, ethical and values-led at all times. Keeping up appearances is exhausting, and juggling your life and keeping up appearances is even more unsustainable. Number 7, take the time to improve yourself. There is always something new you can learn or master. This may be doing an online course, or it may be as simple as watching people you find effective and working out what you can do to emulate them. Never close your mind to new ideas and possibilities. Having spent the recent Christmas break on safari in South Africa and a great admirer of Nelson Mandela, I have another quote from him. Education is the great engine of personal development. Number 8, we're nearly there. Find the balance in your life that works for you. For me, I'm not happy and effective, is the honest truth of it, without music, running and family time. I start every day, absolutely every day, no matter what, either with a run or playing my violin and a good dose of cuddles from my children. Friday night is sacred. It's reserved for movies with my husband and children at home. I've learnt that if I go out and party, I always feel horrible for the whole weekend and wish that I had spent the night on the couch. I simply don't do it anymore. You will all have your own version of balance. Know what it is and stick to it. And my last one, number 9, never take yourself too seriously. Accept that it's a juggling act. You may at times find yourself wearing inside-out tops. I've done that. Missing having the wrong shoes. Done that too. Forgetting makeup. Do that all the time. And dropping all the balls you were juggling. But that's when you need to laugh extra loud, scoop up the balls, step back, make a new plan and carry on. I'll end with a quote from Sheryl Sandberg. We stand on the shoulders of the women who came before us, women who had to fight for the rights that we now take for granted. This is too true, and it's now up to us, as the women and the men, to lay a path and make it easier for those that follow. So I kind of dedicate this to all of you women out there and the awesome men that are on this journey, along with my precious Coco. Thank you for your time.